So, you know how I've always, radio, podcast, I always bring up the 40 sack number, right? I always talk about that's the magical number to be a playoff caliber defense, right? Okay. So I was doing some research as I'm random to do, and I just, kind of pull numbers out and I start looking and say, okay, does this confirm what I'm thinking and all that kind of stuff? Okay. So the last, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So from 2016 until this past season, right? Just finished up the playoffs here, and we're in the Super Bowl now with Kansas City and Philadelphia, right? The past 7 seasons, teams that registered 40 or more sacks have made the playoffs 58.9% of the time. So basically, 60% of the playoff teams for the last 7 years are 40 sack teams. Now, I said, well, what if we expand it just slightly? Okay. What if we kind of think a little bit outside the box? So, teams that register 39 or 38 sacks. So, I didn't go down to 30, didn't go even to 35. Okay. 38 or more sacks, right? So you're 2 sacks away from that magical 40 number. So it's not way over the top. It's not drastically different, right? I kept it within that realm. Okay. Are you listening? Okay. Over the last 7 years, 70% of the playoff teams in the NFL have had 38 or more sacks. Let me repeat that. 70%. It's 63 out of 90. 70% of the NFL playoff teams have registered 38 or more sacks. And even at 40 sacks, it's 60%. So, sacks and all that doesn't matter. No, that's just all hogwash and bullspit. Sacks matter. Sacks matter in the NFL. You're not going to be a playoff caliber defense until you sack the quarterback 40 times. That's what again, we talk about this. Quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. You have to sack the quarterback. You have to be able to run and pass block, and you have to have outstanding quarterback play. You can't win in the NFL without it. And here's the numbers. And I could go back even further. You want me to go back even further? Because I can go back even further and do more research on this. But just in the last 7 years, it's 70% of the league's playoff teams have 38 or more sacks, and 60% have 40 or more sacks. It's the magic number. It's the magic bullet. And so when I look at, and I was just doing some really quick math, okay? Doing some very fast math, okay? How do the Falcons get to 40 sacks or somewhere in that realm, right? Let's say at least 38 sacks to be a playoff caliber team. Okay, I'm looking at if we draft a guy at the number 8 pick in this year's draft, he can get 7 sacks, okay? My interior defensive line free agent, whether that's Hargrave or Deron Payne or somebody like that, okay? Let's say they get 6 sacks. Let's say I get 6 out of Grady. Let's say I get 9 out of Ebiketie. D'Angelo Malone, 2.5 sacks. Ogundeji, not counting on him for much, but he gets me a couple of sacks like he did last year. And then the combination of, Carter or Evans or Walker, my linebacker group, gets me 4 total sacks. So all the rest of that linebacker group gets me 4 total sacks, and I get a couple of sacks out of my secondary. So let's recap. I pick a guy at 8. He gets me 7. My big-time interior defensive lineman free agent signing, that gets me 6. Grady gets me 6. Ebiketie has the big jump, and he's got to get 9. Malone at 2.5, Ogundeji at 2, my group of linebackers, whatever name is on the back of their jersey, okay? If it's Carter, Rashaan Evans, Michael Walker, whatever they are, whatever name is on the back of the jersey, 4 sacks, and then I get Terrell, Oliver, whatever. If it's, Hawkins, Grant, that gets me 2 sacks. That all gets me to 38.5 sacks. Now, I didn't have anybody on here that gets me 10, 12, 14 sacks, right? I'm not saying I won't take it. Not saying that I wouldn't love to have it, but you can get there with this. That there is math involved in this. How can I get it? Now, that requires hitting home runs on your free agent hire or on your free agent signing. That requires hitting a home run on Ebiketie. That requires a number 8 pick in the draft that is a sack guy. Not cornerback playing 10 yards out here, not wide receiver playing 10 yards out here. It requires a guy whose job is to sack the quarterback. And I focus my attention thoroughly because, again, 60% of the playoff teams are 40 sack teams. 70% are 38 or more sacks. You won't get into the playoffs unless you get me to that number. And by the way, some of the playoff teams that have been less than 40 sacks, Tom Brady. Tom Brady's had multiple times where he's been in the playoffs and his defense hasn't gotten 40 sacks. So if the thing I can do is I can just magically transform my roster to have the greatest, most important player and quarterback in the history of the NFL. So the single solitary most important player to have on an NFL roster, if I can pull one of those guys magically that plays quarterback, sure, we can be a 30-sack team because Tom Brady and the Patriots have done it multiple times. Short of that, you better be a 40-sack defense. And that's why I always point to that number, 40 sacks, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. I wish I was 40 years old again. That'd be a long time ago out there. But you've got to be a 40-sack team in today's NFL if you want to be a playoff caliber defense. All right, besides making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day, make sure you make Locked On Sports today your second listen. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get all of your podcasts from.